So I hope it works. Okay, so today's video is a little bit different from what I usually do. You know, my videos are usually all around how to have a great interview at Amazon. But I really regularly get candidates coming to me at the end of the process where they have completed their Amazon interview process and they aren't entirely clear on the outcome that they've been given. I think because they are too maybe embarrassed to go back and ask their recruiter, they come to me for clarification, which is super cool. I am delighted that I've managed to create a persona where you guys out there feel you can come to me and ask questions that you don't want to ask other people. That's great, and please do keep doing that. But I thought I would give you this video so maybe I can preempt that. So, outcomes. Let me also just start with being clear. I'm going to be talking about the very standard interview process at Amazon where there is a very specific role for a very specific hiring manager. There are other processes in Amazon where they are recruiting on what's called a pooling rec. And the pooling rec is effectively where there are actually a whole bunch of roles that are broadly similar. So they have a single kind of recruiting requisition and they hire and interview candidates against that requisition. And as they find a candidate that they like and they want to extend an offer to, at that point then they go out into this pool of other roles and try and match them to a role. What I say now, doesn't really apply to that. It's more around the standard process, which I think is the majority of recruitment in Amazon. So, there are, in this process, 3 potential outcomes, really, if you synthesize it up. The first is inclined. Woohoo! You know, it's super obvious what the outcome of that is, right? You get an inclined conversation with your recruiter and then you move on to the talking and negotiating about comp. Easy peasy. The next 2 are not inclined outcomes. So on the surface of them, seems simple, you're not inclined, actually is a little bit more complicated than that. So the first not inclined is called not inclined, no recycle. And that's internal terminology, no one is ever going to say that to you specifically, but that's how it's spoken about internally. And not inclined, no recycle effectively means you are quite a long way from the raising the bar qualification to getting an offer. And because of that, the panel have taken a view that you need to spend a bit more time in your career building up either a broader range of examples or stronger examples, whatever it might be. But the panel feels that you are just not ready for Amazon yet, and therefore there is no point in anybody else interviewing you for any other role for kind of a period of time. Now that period of time, I think, varies between different teams. There's no statutory moratorium period. I think 6 months is broadly where most teams land, but in other teams with maybe more specific skill sets, that can extend as far as 2 years. So I hope that in most cases your recruiter will let you know what they believe is the best time for you to step back from Amazon for and then come back in X period of time and try again if you want to. So that is a not inclined, no recycle. The next one is not inclined, recycle. So what that means is you aren't raising the bar, but you're not that far off, right? The team feels that there's something there, but this time, in this interview, you just didn't show it. So although they're not inclined this time, what they are saying is feel free to go back into all of the jobs that are available and apply for some others. So they'll say to the recruiter, it's, you know, not inclined, but they can go back and apply for other roles immediately if they want to. So that's the kind of not inclined recycle outcome. There are some rare instances, and this is where I think it gets quite confusing for candidates. There are rare incidences where the panel have concluded that they are not inclined for this particular role, but they really, really think that there is something there in the candidate, and that although they have not raised the bar in the leadership principles that are particularly important for this role, they might be able to show that they raise the bar in leadership principles that are really important in a different role. So in that instance, and it is quite rare, but in that instance, what the panel will say to the recruiter is, I think we should see if we can find another role for this candidate, because they really do feel there's something there that you could be great, but the role isn't a match. In that instance, what the recruiter will do is they will see if there are other roles in other parts of the organisation that might suit you. Now, in some cases, it'll be quite obvious what the group thinks that you would be better suited at, and then the recruiter can very quickly go and pinpoint other recruiters, other hiring managers, and pass your details over. In other instances, they might come back to the candidate and say, you should do that, you should go and look for other roles. More often than not, it's a combination of the two. The important thing here to remember is it is not that recruiter's job to find a job for you. The recruiter's role in Amazon is they have a list of requisitions, roles that they are responsible for hiring for, and that's what their goals are against. That's what they're kind of remunerated on, achieving, filling those roles. So that's going to be their number one priority. Now, if you're a great candidate, because they're all great owners, they will take some level of ownership and saying, we want this person in our business, so can I find another recruiter or another hiring manager who would want them? But ultimately, it's not going to be their primary goal, because every minute they spend trying to find you, who have been rejected from the role that they are recruiting for, a role somewhere else, they're not going to be spending that time working to fill the role that you've just been rejected for. So, in these instances, there is a chance that you will find yourself a match, or the recruiter will find you a match for another role being recruited for. You will, in 99% of cases, if this is you, have to interview again for that other role. It's very, very rare, unless the other role is one that is really, really operationally adjacent to the role that you've just been rejected from, and that hiring manager knows the interview panel really well, really trusts the interview panel. Other than in that scenario, where you might get away with a conversation with a hiring manager rather than a formal interview, probability is you'll find another potential opportunity and you'll have to go through some kind of other interview cycle. It might just be an interview with a hiring manager. It could be an entirely new interview process end to end. So even in an instance where a recruiter says to you, the panel didn't think you were right for this role, but they think you're great and we're going to see if we can find you something else, the onus is on you to find that other thing. Your recruiter might help you, but the onus is on you, and you are very, very likely to have to go through another interview process. It is not in the bag. The only time a role is ever in the bag is if the recruiter calls you and says, hi, the panel loved you, you aced it, you crushed it, we're inclined, let's talk compensation. Any other outcome, and I'm afraid the situation is you do not yet have a role at Amazon. Okay, so that was it. I hope that was helpful. As always, please put comments in the comments box. I'd love to know where you're from, who you are, what roles you're recruiting for, and hopefully, fingers crossed, this video will have reduced some of the dialogues backwards and forwards I have to have with people and help make it clearer what those potential outcomes are. So until next time, take care, and I hope to see you soon.